Okay, so we're here with Michael Wendroff, and we were just chatting, and I'm in Sarasota as well, just down the road probably from you, and you're in Sarasota. And then I was reading on your website, you also have a place in Italy, Lake Garda, and I used to be stationed back when I was in the Air Force in Italy, and I went to Lake Garda several times. So I think we have a lot in common.
What a coincidence. This must be fate.
Yes.
Would you like better, Lake Garda or Sarasota?
I would definitely go to Lake Garda.
Yeah, we're lucky that we're able to
it's
summer there. Yeah.
You know, it's okay over here, but like the problem is the weather is like either hot or hotter. And it's like sometimes you just miss the fall, maybe around the holiday season. It's nice to just get a little bit colder. You'll have an occasional dip that'll go down to like 57. I think it was a little colder this morning. But most of the time it's just like, oh my gosh, is it really like Thanksgiving? Is this really Christmas? It's like we can go to the beach like pretty much year round.
Exactly.
Some people like that, but then over a number of years, I think it kind of gets old. So Lake Garda is nice because it gets nice and cold over there.
It does. Got to escape these Florida summers.
Exactly. So when about are you going to go back to Italy?
So we're going to head back in May. We're going to start with the Rome Open, which is tennis. And then we're going to head up north to our place. We're about an hour, 15 minutes north of Milan. So it is much cooler when you're up on a lake. And from my terrace there, I have a view of the lake, which is, I find water inspires me. So whether it's the pond behind my place here in Sarasota where I look at the alligators playing, or whether it's the lake up in Lake Garda, it helps me write my books. I started writing here in Sarasota with my novel, What Goes Around, and I'm now writing my second novel up in Italy. And now that I'm back here, of course, I'm continuing to write it. And I was lucky because What Goes Around, did so well and got such great reviews. My publisher gave me a contract for book 2, which I have to have done by May, so I gotta get cracking.
No kidding. Oh, wow. That's phenomenal. So your first book did so well, the publisher's like, okay, we got to do more of these. And is it a completely different topic, or can you talk about your new one?
Well, both What Goes Around, my debut thriller, and my second novel, still to be finally named, they do have the two main characters in them. The one I'm writing now is actually a prequel to What Goes Around. And publishers like when you have, somewhat of a series, because, they understand that a lot of times authors have become more like brands these days. And, your consumer, your reader has to understand or, has certain expectations. And you want to make sure that you're consistent. So I'll always write thrillers. And with the series, I have characters that, the people that read the first one, they've come to know and like, so they get to experience them again in a somewhat different time and place.
Yeah, that must be so interesting to like go into your mind for a little bit where you have these characters you're talking about. It's a thriller, so there's this aspect of storytelling, but then you also want to keep the user engaged. At the same time, you want to get your own story out there, right? Because you have a plot possibly, right? You have some kind of a narrative that you want to get out there. So how do you balance the three of those when you're...
Well, it's interesting because, there's the storyline plot, as you said, and then my own plot. And I agree because the actual impetus for writing my novel, my first one, What Goes Around, was what my mother said to me the second that I was born.
Okay.
I'm told.
Yeah.
I was put on her chest. She looked deeply into my eyes and she said, "How nice to see you."
Yeah.
Again. And it was the again part that, has always stuck with me. And I always wanted to do something with it. I always wanted to write a novel, but business got in the way. I got into marketing. I was a global marketing strategist. But then it was COVID, the pandemic, when finally, in my town, you couldn't even go to the beach, couldn't go to movies, couldn't play tennis, obviously couldn't go to restaurants. So I had no more excuses. I finally said, all right, what I always wanted to do, let's give it a shot. And I was lucky. It worked out. I found an agent, found a publisher, and all's been good.
Nice. Let's talk about your writing process itself, right? So you're doing basically a prequel, which I think is very cool. It's very interesting to do it that way. When you're familiar with characters and a storyline, sometimes you do want to know, like, where did this character come from? How was it developed? Where did they grow up? What were some challenges that created them into the current character that they are? And that's oftentimes, why I do these podcasts as well, because I want to learn about the person, but not what they're going to do in the future, but rather like what got them to this point. That makes it very interesting.
Sure.
So how do you put that timeline in place and then understand that, I'm going to start from, their high school areas, or I'm going to start with a particular experience that they had? What is your process? Like, help us understand that a little bit.
So I have a 3-step process when I'm writing. So the first step, of course, is the ideation, coming up with the plot, trying to figure out what the storyline is going to be. And for me, I have to figure it out in a lot of detail. I mean, I need to know certainly where the final twist is going to be. I need to know where the other twists will come in the story, where the red herrings I plant will go. I need to know my characters in the storyline pretty well. Now, not every writer is like that. There are other writers who are called pantsers, and pantsers literally sit at their PC, and by the seat of their pants, they start typing, and they have no idea where the stories go, and they just, where it goes. And that's perfectly fine. I admire those writers. Best-selling books have been written that way for sure, as well as the way I do it. And so I need to plot, but it's not like the story won't evolve. It could. I mean, there's one time I remember where my plot called for me to kill off a character. And I'd grown to really like this character. These characters... Wow.
You get attached, like emotionally attached to the character.
You do. I mean, you do as a writer. And, am I crazy? Well, maybe a little. But so this character I really got engaged with and had to kill him off. And I couldn't do it. So I had to change the plot in that case to keep him going. But in fact, there was another time similar thing, where I really, really liked this character and had to kill him off. This time I did. And I tell you, I was walking around the next week so down. My wife's yelling at me, why are you so depressed? He's not real. But to authors, these characters, they are real.
So intriguing. That's very interesting. Now, let's double click on that a little bit. So when you like your character, right, what is that bond relationship? Is this like a mother and child because you've built it, you've created it out of nothing? Is this like you want to be that character so bad, so you kind of like admire and love and appreciate, and you would hate for that role model or mentor to go away? Like, help us understand that relationship.
Good question. And I would say it is more like a mother and her child, or a father in my case, and his child. Because, just like you create a baby, you're creating these characters, and you are shaping them like a parent might shape a child. And, you grow to really like them. And even, I have to say though, even the bad guys in the book, you do have an attachment, a relationship to them also. And of course, when I do my bad guys, same thing for the good guys. I mean, they're not one-dimensional. The bad guys have some good in them too. I try and make them like real people. No one's just one thing. But they're like my kids, and it's tough. Sometimes they're good to me, sometimes they're bad.
That's a really good point, because I remember there was this movie called Crash, and that really highlighted it for me, without going into the plot so much. But there were like good guys and bad guys, but even the bad guys had some good. Like, there was like this bad cop, for example. But then at home, he had a daughter, and he was like really nice. He would play Barbies with her, or whatever, the case is. Like, he'd be a good dad. But then at the cop, he was like bad. He was taking bribes. He was like hurting people or whatever it was. So I like that, folks genuinely are not just all one way. Like, they're not all bad, and people aren't just all good, right? Like, there's some happy medium in there. And so how do you develop a character and its traits? Like, what is that process of identifying what traits they're going to have? And then what is your process on finalizing, like, okay, this person is definitely going to be, a grumpy old guy, or this is definitely going to be on like the angry side, and this particular instance is going to trigger them? Like, how do you come up with those particular nuanced characteristics?
Well, it's going to depend a lot on your storyline. And, there's a There's kind of a truism, I guess, in writing, that you're supposed to have a character arc. So your character starts out as one thing, and then through the experiences develops and changes, and the end of the story is a change better, hopefully for the better person. Now, to some degree, I try and do that, but I don't think you have to follow that totally. In fact, I was listening to a course given by Lee Child, who wrote all those best-selling Jack Reacher books, and his perspective was, hell, Jack Reacher doesn't change at all. I've written 30 best-selling books, and he's the same guy. And, it could be that, when you're writing a series, then, okay, the character may not have to evolve because people liked him in one book and they expect it again. So, that's one thing definitely a writer has to bear in mind, whether you're going to have your character have an arc. And then it all depends on your storyline. And so, what I'll do in terms of developing the characters is, really phase 2 of my process, which is the research. And, in the research, when I was first writing What Goes Around, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know anything about, guns, some of these crazy secret groups, all this stuff. And, I'd be Googling, all the time. These days, with AI, ChatGPT, for research, you got to be careful, of course, but for research, so much more efficient to use AI. But, what I've really found for research is that the best way to do it is to talk to the kinds of people that you have those similar characters in your book. So, for example, I was able to, in my community, talk to people who worked for the FBI. I was able to talk to a chief of police. I was able to talk to detectives. And, especially important was in our local police station, I was able to go in and speak to a female detective, because my female detective, Jill, in my book is crucial. And she gave me great stories and anecdotes, most of which made it into What Goes Around. So for me, the best type of research is actually talking to the type of people that are going to be in your book. Now, I don't think I spoke to any serial killers.
Yeah. Hard to know, right?
Hard to know. You could be one.
I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe if there were mosquitoes, sign me up.
There you go.
I would destroy a bunch of mosquitoes. There's this one tool somebody made on a research thing where it's like a mosquito zapper. It literally tracks them in the air and sends a beam of laser to burn their wings instantly. And it can do multiple simultaneous attacks at the same time. So you go stick this in your backyard and it's just like going off, and it's safe for humans. Like it's not going to burn your eye or anything. So I'm like, let's go. How do I invest in that? It's currently going through like some cure or something like that.
You look like you were really enjoying that zapping. I don't know about the serial killer thing.
Can we get bigger? What's after mosquitoes? Birds? No, I'm just kidding. No, I certainly wouldn't. I have 2 daughters and I can't even touch like a cockroach without, getting challenged of like, do you really have to kill it? Like, can we just like release it outside?
We talked about character arc. I do have a character in my book, this teenager who, at the start of the book, he couldn't even kill a spider he found on his desk. He had to put it out the window, but things changed for him, and he was killing those spiders later on.
Jeez. Okay. It's like a gateway, right? As soon as you kill an insect, you want to get that thrill again. That's awesome. So that's really cool. I appreciate your process of putting that character together. Let's talk about a little bit of that research you were talking about, because I am heavily into AI. Right? These days, I'm building artificial intelligence agents to help solve problems. And so I am using it every single day and multiple times throughout the day. So Gemini, Perplexity, Grok, ChatGPT, all of them, right? And so when I'm thinking of writing a book now, I am relying like 95% on AI. Okay, that's just how I would approach this, is I would do the ideation like you talked about. I would do the research. I'd also go about doing market research to identify what are the types of listeners or readers these days that would be most intrigued by a book. Like, what is the market asking for? I turn this into a business, right? It would be, hey, we love thrillers. Or, hey, based on the latest New York Times bestsellers, these are the top 5. And out of those top 5, 3 of them are thrillers. So that would focus me into, let's go deliver a product that the audience wants. Because I'm not writing for myself. I don't know if you are, you probably get joy out of this, but ultimately it's like, we want to get some notoriety maybe you want to get some connections after that, maybe you want some sales, and maybe it's about money. And so that's how I'm kind of leveraging it to then do the ideation. Then I'm going into research, and you hit on that right on the money. It's like, it knows things, right? So all of these stories about people could be in articles, could be in public release documents that ChatGPT, for example, can link multiple databases and not only research it, but then give you the ideal character that could be for the ideal book based on market research. So it can essentially put all of these pieces together for us. And then it's like, okay, now I want you to compare, what goes around and what made it such a huge hit, the level of thrill that it had. And I want you to recreate that, but then at a 10x level. Right? And then I could give that type of task to my agent, and then it would develop this. And it would first develop the outline, and then it would come down to like the chapters and then the overall timeline. And then what I would do is I'd get a second AI agent to then be the editor of the first agent. So now I have a team. So the second agent, let's say Gemini, is now reviewing what ChatGPT came up with. And then Gemini has this threshold and checklist to go through to make sure that it's hitting all of the marks that the publisher would want. And then we're developing this book as we kind of go on further. So that's how somebody in the AI field probably thinks, with like a marketing background, business background. That would be like my intent. But what is yours? Like, what is your process from now until May?
So a lot of what you described as using AI seems, very appropriate. Seems like it would be very productive and helpful. I'm missing a bit of the human element in that, I think. I'm missing the writer. AI use has become a very controversial subject in publishing. What the key thing is, you can't have AI go and actually write your chapter for you. So a lot of the ways you describe is great, is brilliant, but you can't have it do the writing. And in fact, for my second book, now that AI has become such a huge thing, my publisher put in my contract that you will not use AI. I forget the wording exactly, but basically you can't use it for the writing of the book itself, which, for me, I wouldn't want to, because my joy is in the writing itself. I mean, that's where I'm writing, not so much for the money. The money's nice, of course, but it's more for, self-actualization, really, on Maslow's old hierarchy scale. So I don't think I'd get that if I had AI writing the book for me. So, my process, and there's a lot of editing in the world too, that's from a traditional publisher, which I can talk about too, because, there could be different routes, people that self-publish versus have a traditional publisher like I take. But, for my process in writing, which I love, is, I've been through the plotting and I've been through the research, and now I get to sit down at my PC and start writing. And what I'll do is I'll just at first get the story out. So I'll just scribble away on my PC to move the story along, and don't worry about the writing per se at all. Don't worry about how it sounds, certainly not spelling, grammar, or anything like that. And then what I'll do, let's say I start, that's day one. Then the next morning, and I always write in the mornings, I'm better, fresher then. The next morning I will go back, review what I'd scribbled out, and that's when I make it into the real writing. I'll look at every word in every sentence, make sure they're the right words together, look at every sentence and every paragraph and make sure that they're the best fit. I'll add the metaphors and I'll add the analogies, and in some cases almost try and make it a little poetic. And so then I'll do that, and then when I'm done with that morning, I will then follow it by scribbling away the next segment that I'll be reviewing the following day to make it into writing. And that's my process, scribble away, make it into writing, scribble away, make it into writing. I'll do that every day until finally I can write my favorite 2 words, which are the end.
And okay, good. So it sounds like you get a lot of joy through the process, right? That's what's feeding you. That's what's waking you up in the morning going, okay, great. Today is review day, or today I'm looking forward to what kind of analogies I come up with, right? And so then when you're done with that process, there's also this sense of relief to say, okay, well, I just finished everything, 300, 400, 500 pages, whatever it is. You write the end, you walk back, and you look at this marvel of this palace that you just built, right? And there's some joy in that. Partially, it's because the toil is done. Second is, okay, well, now we get to go publish, and then more adventures happen based on that, right? Like the writings and the travel, and maybe there's another contract waiting down the road, and so on. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that.
And I would say, you mentioned a little bit about the editing. The first thing you have to do is self-edit, of course. And, that may be, an arduous process. You may be through that a few times, and, you'll get input from, I get it first from my family. I have daughters as well who love reading thrillers and mystery books, so I get great feedback from them. My wife, not so much into those books, but
okay.
She'll begrudgingly read mine. And then, so after you get that input, a lot of, and some writers have writing groups, so they'll share some of their writing or their full book with writing groups and get good feedback. Writers also have what is called beta readers. So these are people who, it could be friends or just acquaintances, but they're people that read your type of book. In my case, they read thrillers. So I'll give the book to, 3 or 4 of those readers. I'll get their input, and some of it I'll listen to, some of it I won't. I actually got a really good twist idea from one of my beta readers that I incorporated into what goes around.
Nice.
And then, in the case of a first-time author, you got to get a literary agent. And, I think it's actually harder to get a literary agent than it is to get published once you have a literary agent. They're really... What's that? So a literary agent is the key intermediary between an author and a publisher. Publishing firms today, small ones, medium ones, they will not look at a book that just an author sends in. It has to come through a literary agent. So what the literary agent does is, besides being a screener for publishers, a lot of times the literary agent is in fact your first editor. A literary agent will often, let's say they've taken you on, you've gone through this query process, you sent out 50 letters to 50 different agents, you get one that takes a chance on you. A lot of them will give suggestions to make certain changes in your manuscript before they'll even show it to publishers. So they'll do that. That'll be your first editorial, and the 10th time you've changed your book. And then what's key with them is, they know all the players in the industry, so they'll know, which publisher might be the best publisher for your type of book. And then they'll know, which editor will be the best editor for your type of book. They have the old 3 martini lunches and all that to get to know people. But they know them, and they have relationships with them. And then, so if you're lucky, they'll get one to bite, and the agent will then negotiate the terms of the deal. For example, my agent negotiated not only selling it in hardcover, but also audio rights, which is key. Audio's become really big.
Okay.
Ebook rights, and then the trade paperback just came out, so it came out about a year after the hardcover.
Okay.
And they'll negotiate all the different types of rights, the terms, how much money you're getting, etc. They'll help you with the contract and take you through it and all of that. And the agent will also try and sell foreign language rights. So my book was launched in English, and it was launched in the USA, the UK, and Australia. And then my agent sold foreign language rights in Italian, which was great. Since when I was in Italy this summer, I got to show all my new friends in Italy the Italian version.
There you go.
And get to tell them to buy it.
Yeah.
He also sold Japanese rights. I haven't seen that yet. It's coming out.
What?
It's coming out soon, but I haven't seen that yet. I can't wait to see the Japanese. And, for some reason, the Hungarian people really... So, and they did a totally different cover. I mean, this is my USA cover, and they went with something different, which is interesting.
Wow.
And the publishers have rights to do all that, and we can talk about that process. But yeah, so that's what a literary agent is, and very important key. I mean,
yes.
Nothing's going to happen unless you have an agent. And then to continue on with the editorial process. So what I learned is that there's a whole bunch of different types of editors in traditional publishing houses. The first editor is the one that acquires your book, the acquisitions editor, and he's more of a, or she is more of a big picture editor, structural things like maybe you need a prologue, or maybe this whole bit of action has to happen further down in the story or earlier in the story, whatever. So big picture stuff. Then there is a line editor, does, as the name implies, looks at every single line, make sure there's no issues with them, they're as good as can be. And after that, there's a copy editor. And what the copy editor does is make sure you didn't say that in chapter 2 she has green eyes, in chapter 8 she has brown eyes.
Right.
If there's dates, checks your dates, or if there's stuff about guns, make sure it's all factual and you're not going to have gun people writing in saying you got this detail wrong. So that's the copy editor. And of course, I'm making changes every time I'm dealing with one of these editors. And then there's actually another editor, which is the proofreader, that just, one final look, and there's always something. I mean, I'm amazed actually today when I'll buy a best-selling book and I'll still find errors in it. And I kind of understand because, when you write 90,000 words, which is what my book is, it's bound to be something. So I've been through the proofreading. I thought I was done. Then my publisher comes to me and says, "Okay, Michael, we've set the hardcover type. You need to now read through it again to make sure something in the typeface process did not..." I can't tell you how many times I've read my book. It's a good thing I like it.
I know. Are you kidding me? Gee. That's quite a process. Oh my gosh. I had no idea it would go through so many checks and balances. And then still there could be something that falls through the cracks.
It's amazing.
Like maybe it's intentional. Maybe you could play it off as
find the mistake.
It's an Easter egg, right? Like let's see which readers are the ones that are the biggest fans are going to find this one spelling error or this one, green eyes versus brown eyes type Easter egg. That would be pretty cool. And then they get to have a dinner with you or something. They meet you.
There we go. There's an idea. I like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So these processes that are going through, how much of their processes do you think have been, realigned with AI, like an editorial or, like the copy editor? I think that's quite challenging because when you're trying to identify, brown eyes in chapter 1 versus green eyes in chapter 19, that's too much for a human to keep in like cache memory, right? We have to be able to document that somehow and then cross-reference it. And the best way I'm thinking in the past would be a script, like a computer script identifying this. These days, I'm feeding the whole thing to Gemini, which has a context value of like 1,000 pages. And then it can quickly identify that these are the 5 things that don't make sense. And then out comes a result in about, 20 to...
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I wonder how much the publishers themselves are going to do that. I think it's certainly a risk for these proofers and copy editors going forward. Yeah, those jobs may be in jeopardy in the future. It'll be interesting to see because, publishers are so adamant and against AI from a writer's perspective. So I wonder if that's going to impact how quickly they take it on from an editing perspective. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't think that's a profession I go into these days.
No way. Yeah, no way at all. Anything that you can do behind a computer, like if your job is like sit on a computer and do something, right? Whatever that may be, is bound to get replaced by AI very soon, including my own job. Like I do cybersecurity primarily, and I'm like, everything I do can be automated instantly. The human in the loop difference is the originality that you hit on, Michael, like at the beginning, where the true writer is not going away anytime soon because you are an artist, right? And so you'll have a following. And if you have a following, then you'll always be in business. Because the people that are reading your books, future books, are the ones that are interested in your production, right? Something that you touch, you put your own thought into it, and then you present it to them. They want that experience. It's like a classic car, right? They want that particular car because it was designed a certain way. It's part of the year. It gives them this feeling of nostalgia. Maybe they remember something. That's the originality that you're selling. The recreation and the AI, that's just like getting a consumable product today and you just use it. Like there's no relationship with it. You just use it and you toss it and then you game over. So that's really where the intrigue is that original author, artist, writer.
Yeah, that sounds right. Sounds good to me too.
Yes, yes, yes. No, I fully believe that. The other folks, all the way through to publishing, I think their job is on jeopardy, big time. Because if I'm the copy editor and the proofreader, why don't I just offer both of those services? Because I literally do like both of them, right? Like it would be so easy to just do one and then the other as well. And then I could also guarantee certain things because I know computers won't make the mistakes that humans will. So there'll be like a higher threshold that people can hold me accountable to. And then the efficiency alone is going to be so much beneficial to the publisher because it's like, well, before it took us 2 weeks when we got it to the copy and then it would get over to this guy and then this guy and then he's on vacation, it's holidays. Well, no, now we can just turn around the whole thing from Monday to Friday and then we have it right back to Michael to do that final review and then out the door, right? So publishers would definitely be relying on AI. I have to believe that. And then it's just a matter of how many more things can they automate and make efficient. But I want to...
Just going to say, not that I want it back that quickly. I need a break.
Right, exactly. You're like, I just hit send on this. Imagine how quickly that turnaround is. Like you send the email and it's like, bing,
right?
Email inbound, start over. No, I was going to ask about the publishers themselves. So, a lot of folks might be considering like writing a book, right? Especially now because it's so easy. I know somebody I just spoke to yesterday, they wrote like 5 books, right? Instantly. And it was like the series thing of like, I do one thing, then I do the next, then I do the next, then I do the next. And then I spoke to another person. It's not that easy. I know, exactly. And it shouldn't be. because then you're kind of like removing the artistry out of it, right? It's like painting a masterpiece. Can I go to Gemini, a Nano Banana today and create this masterpiece of a picture? Yes. But is it going to be worth the same as something in the Louvre? No, right? Quality, objectively, the Gemini one's going to be a better quality. But still, the original painting that's hanging in the Louvre is just going to have so much more value when it comes to money. So that's like a done argument for sure. It's the folks that, this other person I spoke to, they said releasing a book is now down to the number of reviews you can get and the level of momentum you can build initially. So their strategy, and they help people with this, they consult, basically is take that book and get a following before you launch, right? Get these people interested, kind of like what you were mentioning, like beta testers or proofreaders. And so you get enough of these folks, let's say 100 or 200 folks that are interested, you give them all a copy for their services, and then you ask them to leave you a review as soon as you launch on, let's say, Amazon, right? You launch the book, and then that same day, 200 people run to Amazon and leave a review, right? Ideally, they're all like glowing reviews, 5 stars and like big long ones and stuff. So what that does, it tells the algorithm that this is an amazing book. 200 people just read it, they loved it, and it propels it exponentially further, increasing sales. So people have kind of figured out these hacks and algorithms and methods of release. You rely on what I would call like the traditional model of working with a publisher. So what is it that the publisher brings that is valuable to you and something that you just wouldn't wave off of, at least for the time being?
Well, I like the personal relationship. For instance, in the editing process, at least with, your main editor, you'll get suggestions, and some of them you may agree with, some of them you may disagree with, and you'll have a conversation, and there's a back and forth, and sometimes I'll end up saying, you're right, I should do that instead. But sometimes the editor will say, now I understand, I get it, keep it the way you had it. So I like that back and forth in the creative process. And publishers have helpful in a lot of ways. My publisher came up with the title, What Goes Around. I had a different title. It was Perennial, or the Perennial Plan. And my publisher said, that's okay if you want to do it, but how about we think up other names that are more like a thriller, like a traditional thriller. And then, based on my book, which, goes back to what my mother said to me that second I was born, good to see you again. They came up with What Goes Around, because that's a theme in the book. And, what goes around comes around.
Yeah. And it should be Comes Around first, which would be the prequel, right? Comes Around and then What Goes Around. I figured it out.
Exactly.
That's my artistry exposed there.
But, the What Goes Around, thematically, it totally works with the main idea or the main conclusion in the book, the big twist ending. It works perfectly. And I also kind of like the name because I think as soon as the consumer, the reader sees it, you're making a connection in their mind because they'll finish that sentence. They'll finish what goes around, comes around in their own mind. So you've already made a connection with the reader or potential reader. And then the other thing they did is they came up with the artwork. Now, the cover page, the cover art. And, I used to work in marketing, advertising. And I remember, selling consumer packaged goods products, and the ad agencies would come to me as the client, and they'd bring their advertising, and they bring, half a dozen, let's say, in TV storyboards. And usually there's maybe one that I think has potential, and they'd be sent back to revise it and all of that. So I assumed the same, and the same is true of packaging development and marketing. The package agencies, designers would come to me and show me different things. And, generally they'd have to go back for another couple of rounds, different options. So my publisher, when he said, okay, we're going to look at the cover art, I assumed it would be the same process. It's going to take a while, but, showed me the cover art for what goes around. And, I immediately loved it. So that's it. Because first of all, the colors, when you look at it in a bookstore on shelf, it pops, and the colors are like thriller colors, and the design is, I know it's hard to see here, but the design is very circular actually, which fits to the what goes around comes around theme. So publishers were great, editing, coming up with name, coming up with the artwork. So, for me, it was a great experience for all those reasons.
This is phenomenal. Well, I think we should probably end it here. This has been really, really interesting, Michael. Speaking to a real life celebrity here. The next time I'm at Barnes & Noble's or at the UTC Mall just up the road because we're in the same city. Hopefully I'll run into you. Maybe you have a signing there. If not, I'll definitely look for your book. But please tell everybody, where can we find you as the author? And then where can we find your book?
You can reach me on my website, michaelwendroff.com. I have a place where you can email me questions, and I always respond. I love talking to readers, or if you're a would-be writer, if you want more tips, I'm happy to respond in that way too. I'm also on the normal Facebooks, Instagrams, etc. My book is widely available in bookstores, as well as it's easy to get it clearly on the internet at Amazon.com or BarnesandNobles.com, etc. And as I said, the paperback version just came out, and actually the paperback version has a book club discussion guide, because this book, dealing with contemporary issues, has been very popular among book clubs. So for the paperback, the publisher decided to put in a book club discussion guide. So check it out.
Well, thank you very much. I'll definitely take you up on that offer, because I know we have a community of like 90 people in our school that would love to hear from you, like as like a webinar, if you have some time to chat with them, potential authors and, budding artists that you could maybe coach and kind of get them through that class type function.
Happy to do it. That'd be great.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Michael. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.